Test 1, 2, 3. Coffee check. Everything check. Welcome back, everybody. There is no time to lose here. Artist Journal, June 19th, 2023, broadcasting to the world from inner space in Berlin, Germany. One dude with a microphone, a phone, and the truth. Welcome back, everybody. I say in jest, and look at this beautiful work here by Cider, a recent discovery. Just an awesome work here. I mean, what does it evoke? It evokes, first of all, clearly, as it always does with me, crash. I mean, we have a car crash here. But what really stunned me about it, and why it worked so beautifully at the opening here, is this incredible treatment. And again, in a certain sort of way, I take a certain amount of pride in being able to figure out how most works are made, at least having a clue. But as I look at this, I do not have much of a clue as to how this was made. I mean, just look at this little window here. You can see it's like a little Mac window that's distorted. So this distortion is incredibly beautifully done. And then we get this beautiful texture here and everything. I mean, again, it is reminiscent of, I think the name is Osborne, right? Who does the Polaroid camera or like the retro tech. I think there was maybe a Nintendo joystick, if I remember right? Just like the retro tech. And it's kind of reminiscent of those kind of distortions. I mean, in my mind, I do wonder, maybe it's a similar software that's been employed at some point. And it's kind of an interesting point, the software issue, because in digital art, as we could say with physical painting, like the tools determine how the result. And that's kind of a simple idea, but worth noting, because you might have your style of art that you think you make and that you probably do make, but when you pick up other tools, there are different manifestations of your art, and a lot of it is determined on the tools you're using. Moral of the story, it's always good to try out new tools, isn't it? And we'll watch the hair drama here today unfold before our very eyes. So driver error, reserve of 1 ETH. Cider is the artist. People also ask, what is driver error? How do I fix a driver error? How do I change drivers? A play of distortion with digital illustration and collage. You know who else this reminds me of? Just lightly, are the textures we see in graphica.png. So, very interesting work here, and beyond all the tools, beyond all the effects and everything, one has to give credit to the color as well. It's actually a beautifully colored piece here. So there's a lot going on, and further, I would just finally add, I mean, from a conceptual point of view, this is not simply a, image of a car that, maybe could have been painted slightly differently 50 years ago, because it seems to have, as part of its subject matter, automation, driver error. Is this a self-driving car? So inherently modern as well. So you gotta love what you're seeing from Cider. Really cool, minted June 19th. So that is awesome. Quick comments on last show. The response of artists minting ducks on Tezos was hilarious. In a way, it shows how much that community has their finger on the pulse and are committed to honoring and satirizing the culture as it develops. Great show as always. Thank you. And I kind of missed that, actually, but I did go back and read Sabato's write-up, and it was actually quite, maybe I can quickly bring that up before we look at the other comments here. It was actually quite interesting. I thought he kind of... I thought it was an interesting critique. Let's just quickly look at what Sabato said on the goose. If it loads up, I am having issues with that. Let's go back to the other comments here. Leprochant, thank you so much for the support, Adrian. Too bad the internet didn't show my Neuralink but your heart did, and I brought it up here for you. So here is Neuralink, here is Leprochant's page, a very interesting page here, and 2 pages. So Leprochant, I think, has been here for a few months now. So anyways, making heads, as he says. And finally, Silva Santus here. I didn't know your channel until I saw it on Twitter. I'm very happy and flattered that you liked it and showed your point of view about my arts. Made me more excited to make new stuff, which couldn't make me happier. A hug for you directly from Brazil. I wish you all the success in the world. And let's see if Sabato's page is going to load up here. And also, Runetune, I'm obviously no economist, but I have to wonder about this last hurrah statement. Tech is one of the bigger sectors of the market. One can only assume that the people in tech, in AI for example, are paying attention to NFTs and the artists using these tools. If the ones with the money are seeing what I'm seeing, it doesn't take a genius to know that there is a lot of time and energy being put into these digital markets despite whatever is happening with cryptocurrencies. And this actually goes to the big discussion that happened this weekend, as we're going to discuss here. And also, big shout out to Mary Migraine, who loves KHC as well, and Julian Rappolini. Hilarious comments there. Okay, here was the quick goose comment here. The goose itself speaks nothing to the cloud or the code, and that's how the investor class discerns the art in the space. They saw a goose in the flatness, so jackpot. It's not any different than finding a Virgin Mary on a tortilla, and that's referring to that goose work. So I actually thought that was, I think actually that thought crossed my mind with the Virgin Mary on the tortilla, or like seeing something. I actually think that, I thought that was kind of a interesting criticism. I thought it was a pertinent criticism. Let's just continue on. And big shout out to Evelyn O, who actually had a really nice comment here. I've been interviewed on a few spaces, but rarely have I got to actually talk about the art. I understand people want to get motivated. Artists get motivated and learn from other artists, which tool we use, how to stay mentally sane, etc. Investors might get motivated by numbers, but I feel we need to lift the persons that actually talk about art to be able to change the topic in here. And thank you so much. Pocobelli has a really good YouTube channel and a Twitter Spaces that deep dives into the art. The Dankness XYZ is a good podcast, which I've also listened to. Shout out to them. So that is very cool. And actually, on that note, we're going to have Rinny Fish here on this week's Twitter Spaces. And quick show note, I don't know if there's going to be a show tomorrow. I'm viewing an apartment, actually, tomorrow morning. So there may not be a show just out of time constraints. Just a heads up on that. But the Wednesday Twitter Spaces is fully on. So this was kind of the chat of yesterday on Twitter. You couldn't avoid it. Everybody had to chime in. I mean, how many? 400,000 views. Let me read it. So Deez, a prominent personality on crypto Twitter, CT. Often see people talking about the thriving culture on Tezos and why more collectors should collect there. While the art culture over there is great, the opportunity cost of using a base currency that raised way too much during the ICO days and has failed to deliver real value to holders is often too big to ignore. False narratives around green or clean NFTs sure didn't help. Anyone holding XDZ, which is the ticker for Tezos, over ETH or BTC has gotten absolutely shafted on value creation since 2020 SHIT coined summer. Given the weakness of the chain currency, it doesn't make sense for collectors to spend a large portion of their capital in their ecosystem. I look at my Tezos NFTs fondly, but they also represent less than 2% of my art collection and likely will never be much higher than that. And so, yeah, so I got tagged on this by Agor in one of the comments there, and yeah, I saw it too. I mean, it really depends what you're out there for. I mean, I might have a much more skeptical view of, like I'm 1,000,000% prepared for Tezos not to exist in 2 years. Someone was actually saying early on, oh, you should change the name to Tezos Artist Journal. And I told them, like, Tezos may not be around in 2 years, for all we know. These blockchains come and go. But I would go further. The same may go for ETH. I mean, and I'm not an expert in these things, but the gas fees on ETH are problematic. Like, again, I'm not an expert on these things. Frankly, I see DOT with potential feeless situation here, I mean, when you're going out to 2030, if I had to put a bet, that's what I would put it on. So who's to say? And as far as I think ETH actually has done pretty well this bear market, you have to admit. And I don't know how it's doing against Bitcoin. That's kind of an interesting question because the comparison this is the Tezos ETH comparison. But I guess a final thought on this, and then we'll look at a couple of comments people wrote on it, is I kind of see this as a feature and not a bug. In terms of, I never would have started collecting seriously art on Ethereum. Like I bought one piece during the height of the bear market of the bull market just to kind of return because I was making sales. So I felt like I should put some back in and let's see what it's like. And it actually changed my life. Buying an NFT is required to understand what that sensation is. And, you hear from the artist and everything. It's a beautiful experience. And that kind of converted me instantly into the NFT art thing. But I don't think I didn't start buying a whole bunch because it was very expensive. The reason I could buy a lot of art and why I felt like it was worthwhile is because they cost $5. They cost $10 to get an edition, or sometimes for a one of one even. I've bought masterpieces for $100 and less. So it's not so much, in a sense, you might say from a purely, I would say actually not even from an investment point of view, from a short-term investment point of view, I see what you're saying. One can't deny the performance of Tezos against ETH. That being said, from an investment point of view, looking out again, I'm kind of back to 10 years, 20 years. I was thinking to myself, are we even going to know what chain we're using in 10 years? Will it all just be hidden? Is sort of like where I think this will all go. And they'll all be it probably won't be rocket science to get these things all working like we do the internet, whether it's a work minted on Solana, ETH, or Tezos. As long as one would assume the blockchain is secure enough to basically keep its integrity as a token. And I assume that is happening. So if that can be done, and that's like kind of an interesting kind of conversation because all of a sudden, if everything gets put on the same plane and it's purely about the art, well, then all of a sudden, maybe a lot of art on Tezos is radically underpriced, right? That is completely possible. And I'd even say likely. So I think it's an interesting comment. I mean, it could, who's to say? Who's to say? All I know is I'm able to buy art really cheap, and I never would have started collecting if it wasn't cheap. So, and this is another comment I want to highlight. I love Tezos. I make a living from Tezos for 1.5 years. And this is true for a lot of people in the global south, in South America, in Indonesia, and other places. I'm not exactly sure how Indonesia might be slightly more developed, but there are people in Argentina. There are a ton of artists from Argentina and Turkey that are on the blockchain, and it's probably not accidental that the reason they're on there is because their own currencies aren't performing that well. An interesting lesson in economics and art. And there is great incentive when you're getting paid, even if it's like 70 cent Tezos. Well, how is the Argentine peso done? So it's an interesting, it can be forgotten if you're coming from, a Western country and you did you've been in ETH for years and you have a ton of money. Maybe it's a different perspective, but just for people to mint out there, it's unaffordable. So I'm kind of back to this idea. A low Tezos price is actually, for the short term, it's a feature. It's a feature, not a bug. It's still so it pays bills if I make at least 1,000 to 2,000 Tez on sales per month. And a lot of people do. I mean, you can do that. I buy Tezos art. I love Tezos art and freedom. I believe in Tezos. Tezos is home. So that's near Sofka. And another one, Mikey de la Creme. I had to quote Mikey because he is like one of I can't think of one of the most prominent collectors, shall we say, on the Tezos blockchain. Excellent thread, valid points and concerns, is someone who barely makes it by paycheck to paycheck. And I was surprised to see this, considering how generous Mikey is with buying people's art, is someone who barely makes it by paycheck to paycheck. One of the biggest collectors on Tezos. Tezos is the only place I can afford to collect art I connect with. I feel blessed. It's undervalued. Exactly. Like if you're like, I'm like a value investor, so in not financial advice, but as a value investor, I just see value. So I don't worry too much. Again, I see a low Tezos price as an opportunity. And we also have to remember how small this community is. You know, it's shockingly small, international as it is. And what happens if all of a sudden an extra 100,000 people come on board? Or an extra million people come on board, should there be another bull market? This is possible. Then what happens? So what happens if you get institutions involved, right? To me, there's an inevitability on that. But I mean, it could be, who knows how long it'll take them, to join us over here. But to me, they'd be crazy not to. Continuing on, Ed Marola. Interesting point of view you share. I guess different artists will adapt better to different scenarios, referring to D's. But the possibility of dropping crazy amount of art for cheap, I mean, it's always coming back to this price, is great. And this is maybe the artist's perspective. Most artists are using blockchain as a journal and a forum to develop their vision. Yeah, beautifully put, Ed. Maybe from a more established point, it makes less and less sense, but the overall vibe is more experimental in aesthetics and formatting. Exactly. And yeah. So we don't need to belabor the issue here, but it's, I'm kind of back to this idea, it's a feature, not a bug. Art Basel, at least in the short term, maybe in the long term, if your collection is worthless, like fine, that would be terrible. I just find that hard to imagine. If you're buying good art, whatever that means, and you collect right and buying works that stand the test of time, then it seems like buying works for $4 or $5 might be like, what it reminds me of? This is what else it reminded me of, which is Golden Age comics in the 1940s. They were printed on really cheap paper, like terrible newsprint paper. And to me, that makes them 100 times more collectible than comics that came out after 2000, which are all printed on shiny paper with the digital coloring and everything. To me, that's from just like a collector fetishistic point of view, it's far less collectible than these old kind of works, 4-color comics that were printed on the cheapest paper ever. There's something more precious about that, and there's almost something kind of analogous with Tezos in the fact that they're so cheap, and there's something kind of radically collectible about it. Speaking as someone who's collected since I was 6, shout out to Mom who could attest to that. Stamps, trading cards, comics, even turned into vinyl eventually. Goa Trance vinyl. Anyways, continuing on, Art Basel may be busy, but cautious sales reflect a complex market picture. So more signs of a slowing contemporary art market. Secondary market works are taking longer to place as art trade faces, quote, a clear readjustment. And just here we go. Okay, let's just read a couple of paragraphs here. Quote, no one knew quite what to expect coming into this week, end quote. Art Basel's new global chief executive, Noah Horowitz, told the Art newspaper on the fair's first VIP preview day on Tuesday, noting the mixed results of the marquee spring auctions in New York last month had indicated, quote, a real reset, end quote, of the market. Just hours after the fair opened of its most prized collectors, Horowitz observed, quote, exceptional energy on the floor. The question is whether that energy is translating into sales. Commentators say business is slightly tough and, quote, not as good as hoped. So it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more that this kind of slowdown in the art market is discussed, the more it becomes true. So I just wanted to further highlight this. And you can see the article on artnewspaper.com, theartnewspaper.com. Continuing on, what isn't slowing down is Strange Thing. GM everyone woke up to close to 500,000 likes on my Medici collection post, and it's not even a reel. Hope everyone has a blessed Sunday too. So there you can see it, 420,000 likes for this slideshow. That Strange Thing, which he is signing now. So it is incredibly impressive here, what continues to happen with the numbers. And look, Human Boy. My posts never get this kind of traction, so this is awesome to see. Thank you so much for everyone liking and sharing my art and for being here with me on my art journey. And so here it is, and here's a jellyfish by Human Boy with almost 9,000 views, 71 retweets, 382 likes. So it just goes to show, it's kind of back to that Brian Tracy idea of success, that it's largely statistical. The more things you try, the more likely you are to succeed. And I feel like this is a living, breathing example here from Human Boy. And Retro Manny, this was a beautiful, interesting thought, which I quite liked. The longer we remain undiscovered, the longer we have to realize the version of ourselves that will not be ignored. Don't be in a rush. So the more time we have to realize the version of ourselves that will not be ignored, to almost develop ourselves. So when you finally do get quote unquote discovered, you're kind of ready to go. So I thought that was just a really nice comment, as oftentimes people are in a rush. And again, just a reminder, Rinny Fish is this Wednesday on Twitter Spaces. I will put out the tweet later on today, so that is going to be a ton of fun. And of course, Rinny Fish makes these great kind of surrealistic works here. This is a work in progress, the bugs, the surrealistic bugs. So that is super cool and fun. On to more works here. Spiegel's Maskinen, Sea Surveillance, with a super cool work here. This was a one of one. I think Spiegel said it was a commission and a really nice, sometimes commissions are tricky. This one sure worked out, or it had a surveillance camera, I guess, enveloped by kind of a black liquid here. And then you see the lasers and the grid there, going across the liquid. So beautifully done here. And I don't know if this was sold or just sent, except offer of 1,000 Tezos. So that is super cool. Sea Surveillance, great title too. And Sabato, let's see if this gets going, with a few, I don't think we looked at this one, with a couple of glitch works here. So very interesting to see these. It might be slower than the actual rendition here. Almost looks like a glitch ROM a little bit, doesn't it? But really taken to that next level here. And there is another one. And I almost want to reload these in case they might be going a little slow here. But just really, again, this looks like a glitch ROM too, doesn't it? So what's cool about this is how super abstracted it is. Like just very, very cool glitch work here from Sabato. These are 15 Tezos each, edition of 12. So that is super cool. And Demon Ego with a work on Nifty Gateway. And let's just load this up. And so just, again, using the notebooks, using the collage, combining it with kind of GIF pixelation and movement. And here, what looks like maybe some art history, but could be AI. And interesting text and everything. This almost looks like the phases of the moon. So very cool work here. And how much is it? $33. And again, you use fiat on Nifty Gateway, open edition, and 9 editions minted. So it's sold out, so you cannot get it anymore. Cool work. And here's another just cool post here, almost looking self-referential from Demon Ego, because it almost looks like a notebook here, is the main structure, and then little images of itself are put it inside. So, divided into quarters, basically, and of someone opening a notebook. So kind of a self-referential work, seemingly, here. And that interesting combination of what looks like photography with GIF and digital and animation. And look at that beautiful top left one, the great pattern on top. So much care is being taken here. So just very cool. Look at Nifty Monkey on Super Rare. Current bid is $12,000, 6.9 ETH. Let's see if we can make this bigger. So Nifty Monkey releases work on Tezos as well. And also, to our earlier discussion, Tezos ETH. From an artistic perspective, like, as I always say here, multi-chain, multimedia, multi-platform, and more. There's another multi in there that's escaping me. It's very fun to be multi-chain. Just from an artistic perspective, what I release on Tezos, I might not necessarily release on Super Rare or Foundation, right? And maybe that's also true for Solana. So there's something really kind of fun and nice about being multi-chain, and it's also about diversification. Because maybe the Tezos price goes down a lot and maybe you want to sell more on Ethereum. And that could also reverse at a certain point as well, potentially. Nobody knows the future. So another reason to be diversified in where you release your work. Again, I suspect in 10 years, we're not even going to know what blockchain we're using. I would guess, but who's to say? Nifty Monkey, departure. So very interesting GIF here. So kind of a pixel art GIF. And kind of a sci-fi landscape, almost looking Assyrian a little bit, but not quite, and almost some mythological creatures here. Departure almost looks like you're crossing some sort of mythological river, Styx of some kind, to this further area. Pretty interesting work. And the market completely loves it at 6.9 ETH, $11,900, with 14 hours to go. So that is super impressive. And yeah, I mean, look at all these different collectors. So Nifty Monkey definitely has a strong collector base. I thought this work was beautiful by Plants, also known as Cap'n. And usually Cap'n or Plants often just will show a plant on its own, but this I thought was really cool in the way it was showing more of an interior and a drum set. It harkens back to an earlier series that you can find on Cap'n's page. That was super cool. That kind of had a Picasso-esque feel to it, and that I collected. It's really cool. It's a low edition, I think, of 5. Anyway, you see some nice gradients coming in here too, and also here, the color contrasting with the black and white. I thought, again, this just feels like it belongs in somewhere special, like a museum. Elby with another fantastic Super Mario work, Mario Paint work, and it looks like, again, perhaps processed through some sort of analog video process of some kind. Not totally sure about that. Anthropophagy. And I actually don't know the reference here, but I love this work because it reminds me kind of a Picasso. This also reminds me of a Picasso. So you had to put in an offer for 5 Tezos, and then a few were sold for 7 on the primary. And that is sold out. Muji with a beautiful 1 of 1 here. So Muji continues to be super prolific and continues to develop actually quite quickly, which is cool, and making this beautifully colored. I think this is a 1 of 1, and you just see the artist developing here over time. Portal. And I think this sold within an hour, minted at $5.19 and sold at $6.13 to Art Monochrome. And Art Monochrome, I believe, is the same person who bought that Spiegelmaschinen. So, I mean, another way of looking at it is from the collector's point of view. Some people are loving the Tezos situation. As a collector, yeah, you're putting on your collector's hat. You don't want a high Tezos price. You want a low Tezos price. Continuing on, another work, beautiful work by Muji, if I'm pronouncing that right, Muji. And just a really nice kind of semi-abstract architectural work here with some cool kind of deluxe paint gradients and nice dithering. Beautiful, beautiful colors here. Very nice piece. Already 49 Tezos on secondary. So sold for 8 Tezos on primary. Sabato, Loecmi, Spugelsmaskinen. So Green Cross, nice scene there. And that sold out within basically a few hours. So very nice work there. Santiago with some more abstracts here with the cut-up text, what I'm calling cut-up text. This is not a game. So more kind of semi-abstract landscapes, it looks like here, using dithering and and just using more kind of, digital art tools, almost like what look like retro art tools. We have another one here, again, more almost maybe what I'd call pixel art tools, perhaps. And here is another one. And we're going to see in the Edmarola, it makes you wonder if these are being put into Aseprite after and then dithered or something. Find me here, cool title. Most Wrong King has a very cool work here every day. I'm not sure if it's minted. Look at that, Gio Mariani. Very nice piece here by Gio Mariani. But yeah, so I thought this was a really interesting, beautiful work here. So people are having fun. There's Somfrey's studio. Is this the Discover More? It is. I'm finding this incredibly powerful. The Discover More feature on Twitter. Maybe you are as well. It's great for discovery. To state the obvious, Remy Forte, I Dream number 28, just checking the time here. And so another work made with code by Remy Forte. So very cool here. And generated by a Python script I designed, made in my studio in Lyon, France. And this is a one of one for only 10 Tezos, $7.12. Byte by bit. So you can get one of ones for $7. This is the other side of it. Party by Byte by Bit, and I think it's Art Party, if I remember right. Let's see if we can get this working. My internet is not playing nice here. Here we go. Yes, Art Party indeed. So a cool one of one by Byte by Bit here. So again, awesome time to collect. Made with 1988 Fantavision. This is also by Byte by Bit using PC Paint 3.1, so retro tools. Insert disc 2, press enter. So anybody who had a computer in the 1980s would remember this. So that is super fun and cool. Again, I just think of the Apple IIe there when I was a kid. And Pamelo Cerrone with a new work at auction for 7 Tezos. So continuing kind of this pixelation thing, and I think it's great. I think it's really collectible and fun, but still totally recognizable as Pamelo Cerrone's work. So this is going for 7 Tezos at auction with 9 hours to go. Haiti Rocket with some super interesting experimentation here. I'm not sure what, probably a new software here. And he put out a series of 4 of these so far. And this is an edition of 3. And they are selling for 37 Tezos each. So, and selling, I think, pretty quickly. So that is pretty cool. Look at the gorgeous color on this one. 3D Generative Wasteland V-Scape. So not sure what the software is here, but it looks really cool. Kind of has that old retro, almost Tron-like VR sort of feel to it. Almost like early attempts at a metaverse of sorts, but also kind of looks like, mathematical modeling of some kind. So cool software here. Again, using the retro tools or vintage software. Seemingly, one would assume. I guess you can do the colors too. So this stuff all looks great. Edition of 1, and this was 12 were burnt. So it's a fun solution. It was listed, and 12 minutes later, the listing was canceled. So you got to be fast with Haiti Rocket. Again, more clues from Françoise Gamma on what she is using. This looks like Lightwave 3D, and to make this mask on the right, you see it all kind of modeled here, almost reminiscent of Haiti Rocket's works we were just looking at. And here you see maybe how this is kind of made a little bit. So just kind of interesting from each side, from profile and from the front and everything. I thought this was a pretty cool work. This was posted by Cliff Pickover, Mathematics Eternal Percolation Spiral by Bees and Bombs used with permission. So this is Bees and Bombs, and I'm not sure, I don't think there's volume. So it looks like just generative kind of code-based artwork, doesn't it? Quite beautiful. And continuing on, a beautiful pixel artwork and referencing Father's Day, which was yesterday in North America, Anis Abdon. If your father is alive, go give him a hug. I would give my soul to get one hug from my dad. I miss you, Father's Day. It's kind of a melancholy work here, but beautiful from Anis Abdin here. So just beautiful pixel art, profound pixel art here. Speaking of which, Ed Marola with a super beautiful work here. What is this called? Do we have a title on it? It looks like an ark of sorts, like a Noah's Ark of sorts, with this massive skeleton here and people on board. A beautiful open edition on Ethereum on Manifold XYZ for 0.02, total minted 6. So still bringing in the money here. So that's 0.12, which is maybe, I don't know, $180, maybe more. So not bad at all for Ed. I mean, beautiful work. It's great that Ed is using, and a lot of artists are using so many different ways of selling the work, which I think is just, again, a reason to be multi-chain. And commenting on this work, this one is drawn in Procreate and finished in Aseprite. So the power of using more than one software as well. Exporting, the power of exporting. And here you can see it. Because then it's not so much, oh, there's a work that was made in Procreate. Then it's like, no, that's an Ed Marola, is what that looks like. That's what happens when you start exporting. The Night Watch Diner by Wasteman Goldminovich, a cool McDonald's work. And what was interesting, so you see these characters here, just kind of a digital painting. Then you almost see a similar character here, give me Big Mac fries to go. So these two works seem to go together somewhat in this Bad Optics series. So cool works here from Wasteman Goldminovich. And this is a work I think I missed from MemoCat NFT, Fix You Always. So MemoCat looks a little battered here and is getting reassembled. And there you almost see the pin that a seamstress would use, or someone who is seaming, and the ladder and everything. So assembling MemoCat almost like a doll. So a very beautiful work. This is available for 0.12 ETH on Foundation. And a new work from Dan Control. Again, using repetition to make new works. And here's Astro Boy. And this is going for half an ETH on Primary. So very cool work there. And just sold all those VR helmets that we saw just the other day. And here's Luciana Guerok, and this is an edition of 25, and this was minted June 5th. I don't think we looked at this one. It's possible we did. But here, more abstract, cool work from Luciana. This one's for 18 Tezos, but only $12. Diego Barro, I think these are almost gone. There's one left at 1 Tezos. Scarlet and the Shadow, digital drawing made in Photoshop based on a photo I took. So interesting, working in Photoshop now, because kind of similar to the ballpoint pen drawings, but now with Photoshop. So interesting, because it was also using Procreate. Great color here, with someone basically maybe touching their shadow, kind of a moody work there from Diego Barro. I thought this was super interesting. I think Rinny Fish posted this on her Instagram, where you'll find a ton of great artworks. And here it is. An artist I've never heard before, Vanilla She, to be seen, heard, and held, the need for Asian representation in psychedelics. So isn't that interesting? So some novel imagery here, some psychedelic Asian imagery, and this was in Double Blind magazine, so maybe these aren't even minted anywhere, although wouldn't it be great if they were? So very cool work there. This was another one that I think Rennie Fish posted, Fantasian. And here you see kind of a cool, kind of looking like a psychedelic poster here. And yes, you can see it all on Instagram. Just very cool work. You don't know who we are, talking to ghosts and listening to every word they say. So this looks like it's a combination of AI, photographs, and using photographs from our physical masks and AI prompts. So interesting combination. It definitely has its own feel. And so you can kind of see the AI here, and just a interesting feeling work, kind of unique feeling. So there are 6 left at 8 Tezos, and MCHX with a new color field here. I believe this is new, May 6th. Actually, this isn't so new, but I don't know if we looked at it, and this is available for 20 Tezos. Let's see if it plays for us. And here we go. So another beautiful kind of subtle color field work from MCHX. So these are beautiful. I like these, I think, better than Rothko's, but feel free to disagree with me. I'm not religious on that. But continuing on, Tukes, beautiful work by MCHX. Tukes, Psychedelic Quest. Let's take a look. So more kind of AI abstraction and animated as well, moving abstraction with AI here. So Tukes with some very cool experimentation, not afraid to try new things, which is one of the really cool things about Tukes. Psychedelic Quest, and this is a 1 of 1 for 300 Tezos. Here's another work by Tukes, a static work. I'd rather draw flowers instead of skulls. So beautiful print here. Also using AI. iLay with a couple of volcanoes here. Vista AI. So I'm not sure if that's a new AI tool, which is totally possible. Look how beautiful this is, though. This volcano here and everything. So just a cool AI landscape from iLay. And I think there's another one. I didn't load it up. We'll see if yes, so a few volcanoes here. Look how beautiful these are. So available on primary, I think, at 3 Tezos. Very reasonable. So very cool AI work from iLay, and also Zoom with a new mirror interior, which I adore, and with these super cool chairs. Again, AI artwork here. And cool title, Gossip Corner, available for 4 Tezos, edition of 5. So that is super cool. And here, I don't think we've looked at this artist, Rebecca Brodsky's, for the Armory show by Christian Hjellerjurdi Gallery, who we've been looking at for a few weeks now. I thought this was just another cool post here. And kind of a poetic work. I assume this is probably an oil on canvas for the Armory show, which takes place in New York around this time of year. So it's probably coming up right now. Avian Revolution by Leprochant. So oil on plastic. So showing an older work here. So Leprochant has been making art for a while here. Oil on plastic. And you know, Sabato brought up an interesting point just relating to artists who make physical work, and then mint on the blockchain. Like, there's going to be value there if they're making, if they already have a practice and then they put it on the blockchain. Like, it'll never be worth zero in regard to the whole Tezos discussion, the value of Tezos and all that. Walk with a really cool spray paint here of a crab, which is in a private collection. So a lot of colors, beautiful strong outlines, which contrast nicely with the spray. This almost looks like an internet button, interestingly. And that is the show, my friends. We will see if I already could see where this is going to go if the music would play. Thank you once again for joining me. Wish me luck on the apartment. And until next time, take care.